Welcome to the Huawei P30 Pro. I'm super excited about this phone, and it's probably the one I'm going to be switching to. When you open the packaging, the first thing on top is the smartphone itself, and you'll immediately notice this breathing crystal color that I've got going on here, but we'll come back to this. Underneath that, you've got this insert which has a SIM ejector tool, as well as a silicone case to protect it with. And you're also getting the same 40-watt supercharger that we saw with the Mate 20 Pro bundled in with the box. You've got the charging cable, you've got a pair of earphones, but let's get to the main event here. The P30 Pro is the company's primary flagship smartphone for 2019, so as you can imagine, quite a big deal, and a couple of things to point out before we dive straight into this ludicrous camera setup. The P30 Pro is built primarily from glass, and there's a real emphasis on the flow of the body, from the soft gradient color options to the way the back blends into the sides which blend into the front. The design feels fluid. You've got a power button that is well positioned, your thumb just kind of rests there naturally, and it's a little bit ridged so you can feel for it. But what is really interesting is that there's no earpiece on this phone. It uses a, wait for it, electromagnetic levitation speaker beneath the screen, which should mean that when you're on a call, there'll be zero sound leakage, so only you can hear what the other person is saying. You've got an IP68 water and dust resistance rating, and there's also an optical in-display fingerprint scanner, supposedly the best one Huawei has ever used, and no headphone jack. Oh yeah, and on the front is a 6.47-inch Full HD Plus OLED display, and what is good is that when I put it side by side with the S10 Plus, the brightness seemed very comparable. Alright, this phone might just have the most complex and at the same time the most complete camera setup on a phone, period. On the front, in this dewdrop notch at the top, there's a 32 megapixel selfie camera, and flipping it round on the back, this crazy quad camera solution. It's based loosely on the Mate 20 Pro setup, but with quite a few key improvements. You've got the main 40 megapixel wide-angle camera, which now has a more capable sensor and a wider aperture than before, to let more light in. They call it the Super Spectrum camera. You've got that ultra-wide lens so you can capture more in one go, and the telephoto lens to get closer to subjects. Now, you might remember how for pretty much the entire 2018, Huawei was leading the pack in terms of zoom capabilities. Their phones had 3 times optical zoom compared to everyone else that had 2. Well, with the P30 Pro, you've got 5 times, enough to clearly see things that are so far in the distance, your own eyes would struggle. We're not done yet. There's a 4th camera, the time of flight. The phone fires out dots of light, and this camera can then see how long it takes for that light to return, and use it to calculate depth. It should translate to more accurate portrait mode, and better augmented reality experiences because your phone understands the position of objects. One of the things I really liked about the P20 Pro last year was the introduction of night mode in the camera. Well, the P30 Pro does this better, for a few reasons. The phone's more capable sensor and wider aperture let more light in, and the main camera now combines AI stabilization with optical image stabilization, so you can hold the phone steady for longer, letting you capture even more information. This improved sensor has 4 times the sensitivity to light as the last generation, and on the subject of stabilization, from the time I've spent with it, video looks incredibly steady. I was standing there physically trying to shake the phone, and the footage looked like it was coming straight off a tripod. Also, just the general quality is much better in low light. As we expected, the P30 Pro gets all the battery perks we saw on the Mate 20 Pro, so that's a 4200 mAh battery, 40-watt super fast charging, wireless charging, and the ability to reverse charge other smartphones. It's also powered by the same Kirin 980 chip, but now starts with 8 gigs of RAM instead of 6. It feels every bit as responsive, and this phone is releasing with the latest MIUI 9.1, geared at better taking advantage of the dual neural processing AI cores we have here. You'll see AI features more prominently than ever before for things like real-time translation, being able to identify objects in a photo, and just for general responsiveness. According to the company, in MIUI 9.1, 49% of built-in apps respond faster. You're also getting GPU Turbo to stabilize gaming frame rates, as well as just a heap of camera modes to play around with, which is one of my favorite things about the last few Huawei flagships. Now, because of the way they've built the earpiece, it's not loud enough to complement the main speaker when listening to music, so the phone has a single speaker, but it did sound pretty punchy in the time I spent with it, and quite loud too. There are two models at £899, the 128GB version, and for another £200, that goes up to 512GB. And they both support Huawei's tiny NM cards for storage. The P30 Pro is going on sale in the UK on the 6th of April, and I'll drop a link in the description below for you to check out. If you enjoyed the video, it would be massively appreciated if you could subscribe to the channel. And as always, my name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.